Buying blinds is an exercise in information overload. When I was first trying to build my blinds with their, as they call it, the configurator, I was really annoyed because there were parts of the process where I was like, what does this even mean? What's the difference between this and that? And can I actually get a close-up view of how this actually looks? I mean, in doing this video, I have found some of that information that at the time I just figured didn't exist. Like they didn't want to share. It's just they scatter things around their website. It leaves me wondering, does it really have to be this hard? This is how to buy Levolor cellular blinds. Hey Google, how do you pronounce Levolor?
Levolor.
Yeah, say that again slower.
Levolor.
Okay. So today we're gonna buy Levolor cellular blinds. Yeah, so you could go to Home Depot, Lowe's, and the occasional abandoned JCPenney's might still have them in stock. My dad keeps telling me to visit blinds.com, whatever that means. But no, I want my blinds straight from the manufacturer. No funny business, just make them and send them to me. And I did do that in December of 2022 and March 2023. In those 3 in-between months, December to March, the baseline price of everything went up about $20. And in March, I bought them on the last day of a multi-week President's Day sale. And it looked a lot like what I was seeing at Home Depot in November, where the prices were super jacked up, but they were saying everything was 25% off, okay? But even after the Home Depot sale, everything was still baseline $20 more expensive than buying direct from Levolor. So in both cases, I thought these are just fake sales. So that way you're like, oh my God, I've got to buy this right now. I can save so much money. But they're just raising the price to make the sale seem more significant, is what I was thinking. But in doing this video, where there are no sales happening, yeah, light filtering blinds only cost an extra $20, but light blocking costs an extra $80, not on sale. So buy when there's a sale, which I'm sure will happen during most holidays. And as you're selecting options, write down the prices you see so you have a sense of how much more cordless versus corded might be, or if a certain material costs more than another, because it's complicated. And by the time that price calculator refreshes, blanks out and then gives you the new price, you're gonna be like, what was the old price? I don't remember the old price. And so you gotta write it down. That's what they want. Oh, it takes so long to calculate these prices. Let's flash erase your memory of how much it was before you changed the parameters. So, cellular blinds. Why do you want them? I got them because they're allegedly better at insulating your window because of the air gaps in the cells. Why else? Are they considered aesthetically contemporary? Is eco-chic trending? R value is one of those stats that people talk about, but does anybody really know what it means? As in, how does an R1 feel versus an R10?
I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Let's say your average house has R15 walls. It's not your average ideal house. We're just going with average of what's most likely, and maybe that's even optimistic, but whatever. We can assume that your average blinds from the 90s have next to no R value, and your grandpa's pull shade might have a little more than next to nothing. Now, this is one of those things I could not find when buying. Give me more stuff in that how can energy savings benefit you link. As it turns out, they do have actual energy efficiency ratings, but you have to search general product information, which isn't linked to where you buy it. So as a result, I did a Google search and found a Vermont company called EcoSmart that has R values, and I think it's a little easier to read in this case, even if all these numbers are probably idealized oversimplifications of real-world scenarios that... They also have tracks for their blinds, which that is what I was originally looking for and what led me to Levolor. Levolor. But when it came time to build, there were no tracks to be found. Why are tracks good? because they seal around the edges of the window, so there isn't as much of a draft around the edges. Why didn't I go with these? Because I thought they didn't have cordless shades. But what is this? A cordless shade. So we'll just attribute that to information overload. Maybe you want to get your blinds here. Without tracks, they do seem to be cheaper, but that's not what this video is about. Okay, so I'm going to replicate buying a light filtering and light blocking blind I bought for the same size window. So already our price is going up from the baseline $120 to $165. I'm a rounder. I like to round all my numbers up to easily remember numbers. Besides, after taxes, you're going to be paying even more. So
Stop it, buddy.
this is an inside the frame window mount. A side mount is also inside the frame. And an outside mount covers your window trim. It's not bad. It might even be better. But I wanted an inside mount because eco-chic. Shades per headrail is like if you have 3 window panes in one frame and you want to independently control the light from each pane. Room darkening blocks light. If it's an inside mount, there's going to be light leaking on the sides unless you buy or make your own tracks. I have a theory that selecting the skylight option can give you tracks, but they may not be ideal for non-skylight windows, and maybe you should just go with that Vermont company. Okay, so here's where they start dropping the ball on how they could better communicate what they're offering. Single cell fabric is what I got for both. I think I intended to get double cell for a window, but you'll find that if you make a series of choices that create a variation that doesn't exist, it doesn't notify you about it. It just quietly defaults you to a base level configuration that's compatible with the color, pattern, texture, solid, whatever style you selected, which we'll get to that. But first, Energy Shield is just single cell light filtering with an extra coating. You can't have double cell or light blocking Energy Shield is my point. And if you select Energy Shield, your light blocking will turn into light filtering without telling you. That's lame. Just say the Energy Shield is a way of making light filtering blinds more insulative, like room darkening. Except they don't even say that room darkening is more insulative. There's stuff about materials, so maybe you can surmise it. But right here, it just says it reduces heat transfer up to 72%. 72% compared to what? And what are we talking about? Double cell, Energy Shield? Maybe all these numbers are inflated, lab-tested situations that don't pan out in the real world. Maybe this is all an attempt to simplify a much more complicated equation. Clearly, I gave up on tracks, and I didn't even go with double cells, so what's my problem? Why did I sell out so quickly? Because sometimes when you gotta make a decision, you're just glad you picked something. I used to have warped grandpa shades on 70-year-old windows. My situation has improved, and this is me moving on with my life. Now here's the hard part. Color, pattern, solid, textured. What does it all mean, and why can't I get close-up images of what they look like? Why can't I get closer to this virtual window and look at it from different angles? We live in a world where you can AR drop a couch in your living room, but I can barely see what I'm choosing from here. I mean, it doesn't even change when you select light blocking or light filtering, even though they clearly look different. All I could say is every time you make a change to the color, pattern, solid, texture, go back and make sure your previous choices are still selected. There'll be a blue border around what you selected. And if you make any changes up the chain before the color, pattern, solid, texture, you have to reselect the color, pattern, solid, texture you wanted, even though the preview window may look the same. If there isn't a blue border around your choice, it's not selected. And when you check out, it will go to whatever default is. So this is how I ended up with light filtering on my first round. I went with the 701.99 Snow Palette, which is a subcategory of white off-white for all the blinds I bought. The light filtering is C9 DL 9/16 Designer Colors LF, and the light blocking is C9 XR 9/16 Designer Textures RD. But if you want light blocking and you're buying from Levolor's website blind configurator, as of spring 2023, you have to select the color, whatever color you may want, and then you have to select the solid. If you just select the color, when you go to buy, it will null out the light blocking choice and silently switch your order to light filtering. Even though it says light blocking in the summary before you click buy, when it asks you to confirm your purchase, there is no mention of light blocking or light filtering or Energy Shield even when they send you the final order through email, you could see there's fabric type and color, like those complicated codes that are like, what is 9/16? What is this hex value here? I'm sure it means something to people who are fulfilling orders, or at least the computer that is processing this automation. The programmers of this, they knew what that meant when they put that in there, but nobody remembers what anything actually means. It's all for the computers to know what to do. It's not written for you, the consumer, to be able to say, oh yes, the C9DL. I'll take the C9DL in a designer textures LF. So even though you could see there's a fabric type and color, there's no mention of light blocking or even single or double cell. So you really can't even confirm your order, right? Like you saw it said light blocking was selected, and then you go to check out, and then they're using a different way of communicating that, an internal speak. And you, as the person who is a total noob at this, like you're supposed to somehow fully understand their whole system of what their fabrics and textures are, when it's like, I just want white blinds that block the sun. So that's how it's very easy to have your order not be what you expected. So I bought 2 sets of blinds intending to get light blocking as a trial. I mean, I was suspicious because I would expect light blocking to be more expensive than light filtering, because when I made a choice beyond the base color, the price would go up about $22 or whatever. When I clicked on a texture, the price would go up about $45. Why? Because it wasn't truly pricing out my choice of light blocking blinds until I selected a solid or texture. So by selecting a color, you are then telling it to show you what pattern solid texture choices are available for that color. Okay, so if I don't finish filling out the field, why aren't you prompting me to fill out all the fields before checkout? I mean, you're all like, must use a valid email address as soon as I start typing. So they're giving you cues at checkout. But when you're in the configurator, it's like you're supposed to just know certain things. When really, at the very least, they should make videos describing every detail, so people like me don't end up making a video they never thought they would make just because it's shocking how little content there is about this thing. It's like, it's so boring and unpleasant that when you make it through, you just want to be done with it. So anyways, for lift controls, don't get corded because they could strangle children. Honestly, I don't know how I survived the 90s. Here's the skylight option. And I think the bait and switch that brought me here, thinking these blinds had tracks. It has to have tracks. How else would they defy gravity like that? And then motorized. It sounds silly, but I'd rather have shades that auto-magically open over having an alarm clock any day. So for an extra $300, I might have to think about it. Lift style. I don't know how you feel about blinds that pull down from the ceiling and just float in the middle of the window. So we've already gone over the summary, but just remember, when you select a color, you have to then select a pattern solid texture. In my case, I selected a solid. If you don't do that, style and materials will show up as being room darkening or whatever is in the default light filtering. But when you add to cart and check your order, you won't see anything that labels the light control or the energy savings. So I guess you would have to figure it out based on fabric type. It's a perfect storm for online ordering issues. After this video, I'm doing an installing the blinds video, because why not? And then I've got a series of videos about a certain well-known Swedish company that is far worse at selling you stuff online than Levolor is. Yes, Levolor. I know how to pronounce it. Why am I pronouncing it wrong? Because up until now, I always pronounced it Levolor or Levolor, and that's the way I naturally pronounce it, so I was just like, let's go with that. Like, that's good. That's going to be my thing. Well, that's the end of that take.